Hello there! How are you tracking with your New Year's intentions? You may remember one of my previous videos where I shared my three main areas or intentions for this year. So in this video, we're going to check in on those, how I'm tracking, and I'd love to hear how you're going with yours. Hello there friends, and a very warm welcome back to Simple Essentials. My name is Emmy, and in this channel we talk all about organization, life hacks, budgeting, living sustainably, a little bit of travel and exploring, and all sorts of things that help us simplify our lives, because it doesn't have to be that hard. We just need to come back to basics sometimes. And in today's video, on the note of simplification, I wanted to revisit a conversation we started in January, and I'll link the video up here for you if you're curious to check it out. But in that video, I talked about having a theme for the year and having little kind of goals or focus areas or intentions underneath that theme. We all know that New Year's resolutions can be really tricky to keep, and even though I'm a big fan of goal setting, I know that a lot of people, myself included, set really lofty goals around New Year's Eve, and then before January is even over, we've already broken the promise to ourselves, or we haven't stayed true to that thing that we said was important to us. So I am nowadays, and have been for years, a fan of the idea of having a theme for the year. So if you want to get an introduction before I dive into my checking in of how I'm going with this, you might want to check out that video, which I will link up here. And yeah, check that out first and pause this video and come back if you like. But if you did see that video and you're curious But if you did see that video and you're curious as to how I'm tracking with my goals and intentions, I will give you a little recap now. So you may recall that my theme for the year was self-love, or is self-love. And underneath the theme of self-love, I have three sort of pillars, which is learning, body and mind, and relationships. And this little notebook, which you have seen before, I'm sure, in this channel, it's my favorite little go-to place where I write down thoughts and ideas and things like that. But how I've been using this is back in January when I kind of wrote this down, and I think there's always a power when you write things down. It's really, really important actually, is that I almost every night, because I have this next to my bed, I would look at my kind of different categories, and I would look at the things under each category, and I would check in with myself, not as a checklist, but as a self-gut emotional check-in. How am I feeling? Do I feel aligned that this is something that I'm actually doing and being? So for example, under the learning category, I've got things like, reading things, listening to things, all sorts of things like that, some healthy perspective, sharing things, that kind of stuff. So what I do, or what I did back then, was that I would almost every single day sit down and go, did I read something interesting? Did I listen to something interesting? Did I share a learning with somebody else? Did I practice what I've learned? Because that's the hardest one. And did I get some healthy perspective around something? And it didn't always have to be exactly connected to self-love, but it would be things that attributed to your self-love, your self-worth, or your relationship with yourself in my case. And more often than not, what I would find is that every single day, I wouldn't necessarily do something that was learning related, but hand on heart, if I looked at a week, probably 5 or 6 days that week, I would be doing something learning related. Most nights I read before bed. I might watch a TED talk or listen to a podcast when I'm walking to work, watch a TED talk during my lunch break. And recently I've also joined this amazing coaching program, which is really, really helping me focus both in my life, but also in my career choices. So I will say that learning for me kind of ebbs and flows a little bit depending on my energy. But I think that the learning category for me is vital. It's really, really important. So what I did back in January, like I said, I was doing this almost daily. Now I'm probably hand on heart doing it more like weekly. So I'm checking in with this, I'm having a look, I'm like, how did I go this week? Same thing with body and mind. For me, this ebbs and flows a little bit. I do try to get movement in every single day, even if it's just a walk or a bike ride, because I can cycle to my work. So the 2 days I work in the office per week, I can actually ride my bike, which is lovely. But it's not very far, and it's more probably movement than vigorous exercise, but that's totally fine. So under body and mind, You'll see there that I've got a couple of things, you know, including like food, exercise, sleep and rest, things like that. The one that I probably haven't been doing a lot of in my body and mind category is meditation. And it is a topic that I'm trying to kind of learn a bit more about and finding a way of meditating that suits me. But I've been doing a fair bit of nature time and a lot of rest. And I am trying to, I am being very conscious. I should actually take credit for that. I'm being very conscious about the food that I eat and those sort of things. And finally, with relationships, so things in that category. So we had things like friendships, my loving relationships, family and things like that, and having really healthy boundaries and things like that within the relationship category. So even if I haven't looked at this every single day over the last couple of months, I do feel like by writing it down, I've become very clear what pillars live inside the concept of self-love for me. And I'm really grateful that I did take the time to write this down, because it's very easy, talking about simplifying your life, it's very easy to recheck in with this, because there are no specific goals to each of these points. But I am checking in, you know, am I regularly exercising? Am I getting, if it's not vigorous exercise because I had a bit of a cold last week, is it movement? So it's really quite interesting when you start to articulate your version of whatever this looks like, and it can be much, much prettier than my appalling handwriting. But I find that this is working really well for me. So far, has 2021 had more elements of conscious self-love than a year ago? I dare say it absolutely has, because I'm clearer now on what that looks like. And I'm also really proud of myself as I look back in my regular weekly checkup with myself. When I review this, I think of specific examples of when I lived each of these categories. And under relationships for me, a really, really big one is having healthy boundaries. So if anyone that you love is asking you to do something that you don't want to do, or you feel really torn because you're trying to get this other things done over here and you simply don't have time, energy or space for that thing right now, it is perfectly okay to say no. And it's something that I find really challenging, and I know that a lot of you out there do as well. So it's important to have, when you check in with your theme and your different buckets of stuff, to go, how am I living this, and what would I like to give myself a pat on the shoulder for? What am I proud of myself for doing in this particular category? And that's really what it is. It's not about it being perfect. It's about taking little tiny micro steps every single day and being really honest. For example, I know that I have been less organized with my exercise in the last few weeks. I've been doing a lot of walks, a lot of nature time, because that's what I've been craving, and that's great. But I also do know that I need to build some strength. I need some core strength. I need to work my muscles in a way that I'm going to be happy and healthy for a long time. So nature walks are brilliant. And in addition to that, I want to add back a little bit more body weight type exercise as well. So there you go. I'm tracking pretty okay with my general theme. I do think what I can do to improve is probably to look at it go back to look at it almost daily. I feel like when I was looking at it every single day, it was front of mind a little bit more than when I'm doing it weekly. So that's my little goal for myself, to go back to daily, having it right next to my bed so I look at it before I go to sleep, and to acknowledge myself more for the things that I do that are aligned to what I said that I wanted to do. Now, I'm really curious if you've tried setting a theme and 2 to 3, no more than 3 subcategories. I would love to hear how you're going. And if you're keen to take this up and do it for yourself, I'd love to get your comments around how you're going with that, where you might be struggling, and what really worked well for you. All the best, and I look forward to see you in my next video.